Yo, what up, team? Today, I figured I would go over currency farming with you guys and just kind of the general progression of it, especially from the perspective of starting in the league and to getting to a point where, I'm at now, where I think I'm at the end of day 6. I had like 300 plus divine investment into this character, and I'll go over how I actually achieved that and kind of the method that you should approach it. Before we get into it, let's get a couple of things out of the way. First and foremost, I'm assuming that you have the level of knowledge, or you have at very least watched my League Starter 101 video, which I will link in the description below. And I'm assuming you have watched that to understand what I'm talking about. If you do not understand what I'm talking about, I encourage you to go take a look. And if otherwise, you should be good to go. And the last thing, I'm not going to bullshit with you guys. I was lucky as fuck this league. Okay, I dropped a Squire on Strand, a level 71 blue Strand. I hit a Squire on the final boss of that map. Now, mind you, all that profit was lost because I biffed my fucking Uber Elder invite 4 times. So the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. But also, like when I was running my fortresses, I think my first 8, I dropped 6 yokes or something like that. So my RNG this league was absolutely fucking absurd. And I want to make sure that that is out there. However, the reason why this doesn't matter is because whether I was extremely lucky or I was extremely unlucky, the steps that I'm about to show you and the route that I would take would be the exact same no matter what. Let's start with the very beginning when we first start mapping, which is your leveling atlas. You can kind of think of your atlas trees as different phases of your character as well as your progression within the game. So when you first start, we're going to be in the first phase, which is going to be your leveling atlas, right? Me personally, this is a leveling atlas that I ran. You notice I have like 54 points available. Ignore this because I have all my points completed and I also have unwavering vision. So it's not really that important, but it's going to look something like this. This is what mine was. When I start, I prefer at the very beginning of the league to always have not only some progression stuff. So this is some Keurig Atlas mission stuff, some more maps over here and here to help kind of bump my Atlas. I also like to take things like Harvest and Expedition particularly because Harvest and Expedition are extremely good early on. The Harvest currency that you drop is a huge moneymaker at the very beginning of the league when you first start mapping. It's just guaranteed chaos every single map. Sometimes it can be like 10C, 15C. Other times it's 3 to 5, whatever it is, however the harvest turns out. But I really like picking up all the harvest nodes. What I first do is I will always rush through the middle here, grab all this QX stuff, grab all this map atlas stuff, go up here, and then go straight to unwavering vision. Now, I mentioned this in my Atlas 101 video. I know some people don't really like unwavering vision. For me personally, I prefer unwavering vision. I don't really sell the scarabs early on. I'm not too like market savvy with scarabs at the very beginning. However, I'm very comfortable making money off of expedition and harvest. So that's what I go for early league every single time. Once I pick up unwavering vision, I will take those 20 points. I will pick up all my harvest wheels, grab a little bit more map sustain stuff right here, and then I will go into expedition. I always prefer harvest first because again, the currency here is guaranteed and it's very easy to sell on the currency exchange. And then I take expedition because expedition is just phenomenal early on. It gives you a ton of early bubblegum currency that you absolutely need. You can make an ass ton of money off of it. In the description, I will link a video that goes over how to run expedition. It's the one I watched however long ago. It works great. It's by Tribal Bear. So this is the tree that I ran in the beginning, and honestly, I got off it pretty quick, but I think if I were to run it back or when I run it back next league, I will most certainly incorporate June in here. June is actually really good. The mechanic is a bit complicated to understand, and I don't totally get how to run the safe houses yet, so I'm going to spend this league figuring all that out and fucking around with it. But I think I would definitely add June to this as well, because June is just extremely strong early. The safe houses actually award a ton of XP, and killing the fucking idiots also gives you a ton of XP. So I think June just in general is worth it. And yeah, I would probably combine all 3 of these things, and that would easily account for more than enough currency for your beginning leveling tree. And to further summarize in a general perspective, this can be whatever you want. The leveling tree is going to incorporate, at least from my perspective, is going to incorporate 2 things. You're going to incorporate a bunch of map sustain because again, we still want to progress the Atlas, right? We still need to get our void stones, still need to get our Atlas points. So progressing the Atlas is absolutely a paramount objective. However, you also want to make money on the side, at least in my opinion. Obviously, if you're a fucking god gamer, you're playing some super meta shit, you don't need to invest in side farming strategies for your leveling Atlas. I prefer to do so. It makes it way smoother, makes it much easier to gear your character, and it preps you for your T16 farming farming strat much sooner rather than later, but again, it depends on the strength of your character and what you need. That being said, you can do whatever you want. If you can handle essences, do essences. Beasts, same thing. If you prefer to farm delirium, it's whatever you want. It's just you're going to couple a map progression, atlas progression strategy with some extra farming stuff on the side that you can run that doesn't require scarabs, doesn't require map modifier effect, that sort of thing. The next phase of this would be completing your atlas leveling tree, and it's going to look something along these lines. We have 112 atlas points, so maybe we have like 108 maps completed with some maven invites. We either have our first 2 void stones or we're about to complete our first 2 void stones, and it'll look something like this. This is very similar to what mine looked like, except I didn't have June because I didn't understand June. I still don't, and I had this probably, I think it was in more map sustain and that sort of thing, but it'll look something along these lines. This is going to be an in-between point of we're not running a hyper geared leveling atlas strictly to progress our atlas, but we're not really running an investment strategy. I think ideally, if I understood June and it looked like this, you would have plenty of currency from each of your maps, and you would be very smooth sailing at this point, gearing up to run your T16 strategy. Again, this can look like whatever you like. Mine didn't have June. I had more atlas progression stuff, get through my atlas quicker, but I did have all of my harvest and expedition nodes as well as red altars. I prefer red altars. Generally, the characters I play are better for reds. As a quick note on altars and which you should take the altars that your characters can fucking click, okay? If you run reds, but chaos is really nasty for you and you can't handle chaos, or the meteor is really rough or something like that, or burning ground is terrible, but you can run blues and you don't have charges or anything like that and it doesn't really affect you, then you should run blues, and the reverse is true as well. If you can't really hit a lot of the blue stuff, which is me, I stack a lot of charges and shit, so the blues really fuck me over, but I'm also CI, so red is kind of a meme, right? Then I should run reds. You should run whichever altars you can click the most. And if you can click both equivalently, well then fuck, do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. I think reds are technically better, but blues give you that sick ass divine altar one in every 5 billion maps. So think about that one. I think this league I actually ended up running blue altars and trying to hard force blue, and it was a fucking disaster. I didn't click like any of them, and I probably lost an ass ton of currency because of it. So ultimately, yeah, I swapped over to reds. You should run, again, whatever you can run. And now we're going to enter the next part of this, which is you have completed your atlas, okay? You have all 4 void stones. With the currency that you generate from that previous leveling tree, you should have had more than enough currency to build up a character to complete your 4th void stone and complete the rest of your atlas objectives. And we'll say you're at like 122 out of 132, okay? So you haven't done some invites, maybe you're missing some bosses, maybe a couple maps, whatever. You have 2 options, okay? Both of these options are going to be a farming strategy that you can use. One will be significantly less investment and also significantly less difficult, but it will also be less profitable. This is going to be a continuation of the leveling tree. I did not run this, and I personally will not or would not run something like this if I didn't have to, okay? This is a tree where you don't really know what you want to farm. Maybe you can't do the T16 farm that you're looking at, and you need to get a little bit more currency and power, but we kind of just want to alch and go. We don't want to run scarabs, that sort of thing. This is a continuation of the leveling tree, but we have all the map sustain gone out of it, and we've instead invested in a map modifier effect. Map modifier effect increases how rewarding our maps are at the cost of increasing how difficult they are. So for example, if I have 100% increased effect of explicit modifiers on my maps, what that would mean is if I had a roll that was 100% of monster physical damage gained as lightning, that roll would then be doubled because of my 100% increased effect. And so it would be 200% of monster physical damage gained as lightning. However, the gain from this is that my innate item quantity and rarity and monster pack size would be increased once I enter the map. That's why we want a lot of map modifier effect, because it buffs those 3 innate values that makes our maps way more rewarding. And that's kind of the difference between a leveling tree and the T16 alch and go non-investment version of the leveling tree after we've dropped map sustain and atlas progression. That's really the main difference, is that we're just upping the map modifiers to make the rest of this stuff more rewarding but also more difficult. And that's also why you wait, because you need to have a stronger character for this. Now, as I said earlier, this is a step that I would likely skip, or ideally you would not need to do, but this is just here in case you're looking for an alch and go strat or something like that. Once again, in an ideal world, we would just not have to do this. We would go straight from the leveling tree into our T16 farming strategy. So for me, the T16 farming strat that I ran the moment I finished my atlas to enough points to where I could run something like this, this is the strategy that I ran. I also did this after my void stones as well. I think you pretty much always want to run with 4 void stones before you start doing your T16 farming strategy, mainly for T17 map drops. You get increased T17 map drops per void stone that you have, and then also it makes all the maps that you drop T16s, and you can sell those those as well. So once you have all your void stones, you would then jump from your leveling tree to a T16 farming strat, and you can use any one that you want. I prefer harbingers. As you can see, this is a classic harbinger strat. We have altars, harbingers, a bunch of scarab stuff, and then a bunch of map modifier and quant. This is a pretty standard harbinger strat. This is one of my favorite strategies in the game. It's always my go-to for my T16 farming strat after I finish my atlas and my void stones. To run this strategy, it would be this tree that you see in front of you. You would then run a harbinger scarab, two of them actually, a scarab of regency and then a scarab of warhordes. You would take the harbinger map device as well. That will be included when you run this strategy, and this is when you would start actually chiseling your maps. This is when the quantity or the quality of the maps will actually make a big difference, especially in regards to map modifier effect, because I believe one of these gives you map modifier effect based on quality. I think it's going to be this one right here, and this is when you are doing your investment strategy. This is where you're going to make the bulk of your money that preps you to get into T17s, assuming that you want to actually run T17s. If you don't, then you'll have to come up with a different strategy. For me, T17s are always my goal, especially the earlier you can get into them, the better. So my plan was to hit my leveling atlas, go straight from that to harbingers, farm harbingers for a little bit. I think I actually farmed harbingers a little bit too long this league because my character was way stronger than I initially gave it credit for. And then I jumped to T17 strong boxes as soon as I could in Fortress, and I was farming T17s in about day 3 of the league. Now, there's a few things I want to mention here. First and foremost is to talk about the early moving advantage of being in the market, especially in PoE. When you are fast and you are there early, the amount of money that you make on shit is absolutely bonkers. For example, Yoke of Suffering right now I think is down to like 2 or 3 div, maybe 4 div depending on the role. Might be a little bit higher if you get like a 10%. But when you are first running Fortress in day 3 of the league, Yoke of Suffering, if you drop a 10%er, that bitch is like 20 divine, and it's a 1 in 20 chance. Like I said, I got super lucky, insanely lucky, and I dropped like 6 of them in my first 8 Fortress maps. So I was eating good the moment I touched T17s. Also, T17 strong boxes are just insanely lucrative. They have so much lottery potential on top of just having a super high base amount of currency per hour. They're significantly better than the Harbinger strategy that I run. I'm sure there are T16 strats that can be comparable. It really all just depends on what strategies are available and like what the league mechanics are, what the changes are, that sort of thing. The other thing I wanted to mention about entering the market early is that your scarabs are usually a lot cheaper for your T16 strategy. I think between all these scarabs, it was literally like maybe 10C, 12C to run Harbies, not including the map device. So it was extremely cheap early on as well to do your T16 strat. To go over my T17 strongbox strategy, of course, we take ambush on the map device. I ran 3 ambush scarabs with a hidden compartments and a discernment. Buck running containment. It's too rich for my blood. I like how nice and cheap this shit is. This was the strat that I ran, and I ran this over. I still run it now. I honestly love T17 strongboxes. It's really fun. Early on, of course, you will run Fortress. Fortress is the most profitable by far because of Yoke of Suffering. However, as the price of Yoke goes down, you will eventually swap over to Ziggurats for the Uber Boss fragments that drop there. But again, even if Yoke is still like 3, 4, 5 div, I think Fortress is still worth running over Ziggurat. And then, yeah, eventually it'll drop below like a Divine or like 1 or 2 Divine. Then you'd swap over to Ziggurat. But that was pretty much the secret, you guys. I just ran that strategy in that order, and I ran T17s over and over and over. And I was very early. Like I said, I hit them in day 3. I made a ton of currency early on. To summarize for you guys, it's pretty much you start, you get your leveling atlas. Again, I prefer some side currency farming while you're doing your leveling atlas. Progress that shit, get your void stones, get some atlas points. Then you can either swap to an Alcan Go or continue your leveling atlas as an Alcan Go, or you can ideally, what I did, swap to a T16 farming strategy. I prefer Harbingers. I swap over to Harbingers, run Scarabs, take map mod, invest, run Harbingers for a little bit, build up my character. Pretty much have to build up your character in phases, and it's really about the power of your character and the placement of your progression. Like, where are you at in the atlas, right? If you've completed your atlas and your character's super strong, like very strong, you can probably just go straight to T17s. If you completed your atlas and you're not very strong, you can probably do just a T16 farming strategy. You might have to do a continuation of the leveling tree strategy or that sort of thing where you're doing an Alcan Go low investment that's a bit easier so you can build up your character a bit more. It really just depends on, again, your character power and then, of course, your atlas progression. I wouldn't recommend running any high investment scarab strategy T16s without your void stones or without at least the bulk majority of your atlas points, maybe like 120 at least, something along those lines. You can, it's just probably not worth the value that you lose. You can run like that continuation of the leveling atlas Alcan Go strat. You can run that on 3 void stones, 2 void stones. It's not that that big of a deal. You're not investing into it, so you're not losing money. You're not chiseling. You're not using the map device scarab. So it's kind of whatever, who cares? But once you're actually investing in your maps, you're dropping like 20, 30 C a map. It's a big deal that you're getting the absolute most value that you can out of them, because again, you might actually be losing if you're missing a void stone, missing too many of your Atlas passive points, that sort of thing. But anyways, you guys, that is all I have for you today. I will see you in the next one. Deuces.